to Go Indie Now's very first town hall experience. I hope everybody out there is locked and loaded and ready with some great questions. We have a great group of who you will meet here just in a second. I'm super excited to talk about everything that's going on in their worlds and give you guys some insight into how they operate, because it's very fascinating, it's very interesting, and I think you all will learn quite a bit from it tonight. And so with that, let me have everybody, I'm going to bring everybody on board, and then I'll have them introduce themselves one by one, and then we'll get started. I already have questions ready to go, but if you do have a question, please leave it in the chat. I will grab it and we will ask it, and this is your show. So everybody tonight, if I'm depending on you, I did not prepare anything. As you can see, I have a very blank page here. So, well, actually I don't have a blank page because I have questions from other people, but none of these are my questions. So, but in other words, this is not a typical Joe Compton show. So I'm really, really relying on you, my audience tonight. So please feel free to ask. And with that being said, let's go ahead and introduce everybody real quickly and tell everybody where you're from and what you do at that particular press. And if you do something beyond that press, I know that all of us here have been authors or something exciting. So please enlighten us and tell us who you are. And I'm going to start with, I'm just going to go to my left and go that way. So I'm going to start with Mandy.
Hi, I'm Mandy Melanson. I'm the editor-in-chief of Red Askew Publishing, and I handle the acquisitions as well. And I'm really excited to be here.
Nice. And you do a lot of the editing portion of what you do as well, don't you, Mandy?
I do a fair bit of the development editing. Emma Jitani is our senior editor, so she handles the copy edits.
Nice. All right, Mr. Ed Souter.
I am Ed Souter. I am the Chief Operations Officer at Burning Willow Press, which means that I'm kind of like the head flunky, I guess. I am not an author. I don't claim to be an author, although I do write and dabble from time to time. But I also help a lot with editing and acquisitions and pretty much the day-to-day operations of a small independent press.
Talk to everybody about your shirt, because you're giving.
Oh yeah. Civil Judgment is a company that was founded by Charisse Janine. She is the cover model for. Give me 2 seconds. I will find the cover for. Here we go. This is one. This is an older one. She is the cover model for this particular book by William James Ramos Parks. And she's been on several other books, and she started this thing as a way to empower female entrepreneurs such as herself who have been through pretty much hell. And I told her I'd support her no matter what it took. She's part of our family now because she is one of our models and on several of our books. So I try to support all the models that, live models that get involved with our books.
Nice. That's awesome. It's a great segue into two of my favorite female entrepreneurs here. They don't struggle like that. Hopefully not. I hope that their path was a lot easier, but let's have Rebecca introduce herself.
Yeah, if you're a female entrepreneur, you're struggling, and
okay.
The struggle is real, y'all. I mean, so hi, I'm Rebecca Jonesy. I am the COO, the cool one of Three Theories Press. I am also in charge and submissions, so I am the one who does the dirty deeds that need to be done.
And quite the editing eye she has as well. All right.
Yeah, I also do about half the dev edits.
All right, Christy.
Hi, I'm Christy Stratus, and I own my company, Proof Positive, which you can find at proofpositive.com. It's an editing company. I am proofpositivepro.com, and I'm also the associate editor, and I do acquisitions at City Owl Press, which you can find at cityowlpress.com. I also have the Creative Edge Writers Showcase, which is a podcast through Authors on the Air. And you can listen to various authors be interviewed, best-selling, India, pretty much everything you can think of. And I'm also an author. I have published 2 books in the Dark Victoriana collection, and there are more to come.
How are you moving along without Google Hangouts? Are you okay?
I haven't had it taken away yet that I've seen, so I guess maybe I'm.
Well, this happened today, so.
Less. Oh no. Well, I guess we'll see.
It's a bit of news to people. I was shocked that people weren't aware of this. It's pretty interesting.
I've known for months.
Yeah, they've been talking about it for a couple of years actually. But yeah. Earlier this year is when they really decided that it was time.
I should probably go back and say that
they were talking about it.
Yeah, but it actually happened.
So.
I should probably go back and say that my company is actually 51% owned by a female as well. My wife owns Burning Willow Press. I am just the person who runs it.
That's awesome. And thank you, Christy, for by the way, you just got compliments on your shirt in the chat.
Thank you.
But thank you for telling us everything about you, and welcome everybody to this incredible. As you can tell, I have amazing people here. I'm real excited to talk to each and every one of them. And I wanted to start with a question from our audience that was given to me in one of the groups I belong to. And it's her name is Monica I'm going to butcher this name. Monica Sagel Zawistra. Yeah, that was.
It's from Monica.
Yeah, it's from Monica. Yes.
So
we all know Monica. Monica's great. We love Monica. She wants to know how you define yourselves. Do you define yourself as an indie press? And what's different about you and what you do than a traditional press?
Who wants to go first on that one?
I'll start.
I'll go first.
Go ahead. Who was okay? Let's have Mandy go first. Go ahead, Mandy.
Okay, so we define ourselves as a small indie press, but we are following a more traditional model. But what we do different is we collaborate with the authors at every stage, and we create a workflow so they can actually see where we're at each stage, and there's no guesswork. They're not left out there waiting for updates, wondering, when am I going to get my next edit? They can actually see exactly where we're at on their file, who's working on it, and they can connect with that specific person to ask any questions that they want.
Nice. Rebecca, you wanted to go?
Yeah, I also, same way we consider ourselves a small publishing press. We are very indie-centric. We support the indie community. Same as her, we work with our authors nonstop. We have a timeline that we keep updated for each project. They can see what we're doing. However, we don't let them see where we are in it at that current time because we've had issues with authors jumping in and like poking at the edits as the edits were happening. And that chick had to get her hands slapped, so now it's all locked down, and Rebecca Jonesy is no longer allowed to look at the edits until Julie.
That's awesome.
Gotta call myself out on that one because I was the worst offender.
Not you, no way.
That's pretty funny. How about for you, Ed?
I only meant to take a look.
Yeah, okay. I don't believe that 1 second. We talk. Rebecca and I have been friends for a while. We talk a lot. So we'll talk about this tomorrow, I'm sure. She'll call me. Hey, what you doing? You want to talk about what happened last night? Sure. You got coffee? I do. I'm ready for the long haul. We too consider ourselves independent, and the main difference between independent and, from what I can tell from the big publishers, is we give the author more of a hands-on approach. They get their say in what gets approved, what gets done, what happens, where it is in the stage of development, and they can see the edits. They can see the cover art as it's being developed. They can see how it looks when it's in format. And we don't just hand it to them and say, this is what you get. Sorry. So with independent with my personal independent publishing company, the one that I run for my wife, I think I said that already. Yeah. There's and the difference between a traditional publisher is the traditional publisher will say, this is what you get, and we're putting all this money into it, so you don't get to say so in what we're doing. You get to see what the book looks like when it shows up on your doorstep in a box full of them. We don't do that. You get to see what your book looks like long before it comes out. So you actually have the opportunity to say, well, I don't really like that, so can we tweak it here or there, or things of that nature. We don't just say this is blindly what you're getting. At least I haven't had to do that yet. I might have to in the future, though. I really don't want to, but hoping we can discuss that.
Nice. That's awesome. I know, Christy, that you don't run City Owl, but you do. I'm sure you have an elevator speech prepared for people who do pitch to you. So what is it? What is their philosophy in terms of their publishing and how they operate? Do you have a sense of that?
Yeah, it is very similar what everybody is saying, small press, and that you get a lot more of a say. So like if I'm editing someone's manuscript, this isn't too different from what everyone else is saying, but if I'm editing someone's manuscript, I send it back to them. Of course, they can come back and say that they agree or don't agree and how they think something could work in a different way. Whereas, of course, with a traditional publishing company, it's just, here you go, that's your book now, like it or not, because that's what appeals to the market, a lot of the time. So we definitely, just like everyone else here, we don't do that. And the author definitely has a say. They also have a strong say in the cover, the blurb, the title, really everything the author has a strong say in. And we all sort of work together as just a big team to make this happen. So like everything, everyone else is saying here, and I have to say that it's a really satisfying process for, I think, everyone involved.
Nice. All right. So to follow up, Monica had a follow-up question that she wanted to ask, anticipating that you guys would give her such a great answer. And she's curious about, could a single person define themselves with what you do, or are you guys a little bit more, do you think that, most people who would be single press would be self-published, right? Indie press has a little bit more involvement to it than somebody who's singularly doing it on their own. Would you agree with that, or would you disagree with that?
I absolutely agree with that. That with indie press, you have experts there to help you and to guide you in making decisions regarding your book, and they are giving you the advice that will benefit you and your book in the long run. But the benefit to going with indie is that while you do have that support, you still have the ability to have your voice as the author heard. And that's something you're not going to get with traditional. And if you're just a self-published author or single, then you're not going to have the support of the community behind you and those experts that can help guide you to make the right decisions.
Nice.
Yeah, I have to agree 100% with what you just said, Mandy. And, just to expand, because it's exactly what you said. For example, City Owl Press is going to be City Owl Press has already done the research in the market that you're going to be aiming for. So, you're going to have a say in the cover, like a big say, but we're also going to know what's going to attract. The cover artist specializes in that, or, the team specializes. They're very well aware of what's going to sell and what isn't going to sell. So it's a good combination there. What you want, but also know that it's going to appeal to that market. So it's definitely different from doing it on your own, where you are trying to do the research by yourself. And sometimes that can be pretty confusing when you look at Amazon, knowing and trying to market on your own. All of that is really, it can be quite the process. And everyone has something very different to say. So I think having a small press behind you is really nice, especially for that reason.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys want to add to that, Ed or Rebecca?
I would like to add just a little bit to it. When you've got an indie press behind you, you're not paying out all the money that a self-published author does. The indie press is supposed to do it for you. So you come out a winner either way. Provided you do what they ask, you're probably going to come out better. But if you don't, and you're good with being number 1,143,762 out of 1,143,763. Okay,
Nice.
this could be beer. We don't know yet.
Okay.
It's not. It's water.
Boy, that was a letdown. All right.
I'm not drinking tonight, Joe.
Okay. Nor am I, Ed. Nor am I. Rebecca, did you want to add anything to that?
That could be vodka.
Yeah.
Or Kahlua.
Plot twist.
You never know. Hey, drinking with authors, right?
Yeah.
Nice. Always.
So it's basically what the other said. Yeah. You work with us. We've got experience in the field. I was an indie author for years before I joined a small publishing house and then started my own. Can you do it? Sure. Can you do it and do it well and have a life?
Mm-mm.
Probably not, to be honest.
The vast majority can't.
That's the main thing.
Yeah.
Although, like Ed mentioned, paying out of pocket to get things done.
Yeah.
The vast majority can't do it on their own because of the expenses that are involved for, quality edits, quality cover art, or even formatting or whatever. I mean, yeah, you can do it on your own. A lot of our authors at BWP are independently published and self-published, and we've got one or two that are traditionally published. So it just depends on which way they want to go. We call them hybrids, I think. So do you want to do it on your own and be successful at it? You got to work at it. There's no way around it. It's a job. It's a career. If you're working a 9 to 5, like, most of us out here, then, with the exception of Joe Compton, who's got money falling out of his pockets, then, you're going to have a harder time. So, I mean, if what it boils down to, though, is with the traditional or an independent publisher, all the professionalism is going to be there. And if it's not there, address it. Ask them why. Ask them questions. I'm always open to questions with my staff, with my authors, depending on the day of the week. Usually that ends in why, but I'll open up the emails and I'll get questions. And sometimes I get bitch fests. It comes with the job. I'm sure Rebecca gets it. I'm sure Andy gets it. Christy, you probably get it too. I mean, you open up an email and there's a good question that should be answered immediately, or there's something I can get to a little later, or there's somebody who's just not happy and you got to squelch that flame before it becomes an inferno.
This is why I love my panel, who is super smart, because Ed just totally segued perfectly into the next question. And he probably didn't even know that, or maybe he did. Maybe he did.
I'll never say. My powers are used for evil. I mean, good, not evil.
But and again, I apologize if I butcher names. I'm terrible at it, so just bear with me. But Rajin Nabid asks, when does an author's input go from creative input to incessant meddling? Kind of along the lines of what you were just saying, Ed, a little bit.
I have a lot of experience with that lately. And I'm not going to name any names. They know who they are. But I do have a lot of experience with that lately, to where you get an author that thinks they know better than their editor, thinks they know better than their formatter, thinks they know better than their cover artist, thinks they know better than their publisher, or even their agent or whatever. And they're trying to, and you're at a point where you're like, you know what, just self-pub it then. Because obviously you don't need me. You don't need my company. Just do it on your own and let's see how it does. So I don't want to be that guy, though. I mean, if I sign a contract with you, I'm going to hold up to the complete terms of the contract to the best of my abilities. And I'd hope you'd do the same. So, that's just the way it is, though. It comes and goes daily.
How about I would imagine on the editing front, Christy, you have this sometimes happen to you, I would imagine.
Yeah, on the small press front for City Owl, what I do is I always ask ahead of time. I always tell them, these are some of the changes I'm going to be looking to make, especially if it's a strong structural change. If it's hefty, I really need to know if they're going to agree to it beforehand, because I definitely don't want to deal with exactly what Ed is talking about. And, you know, I'm sure even with some people, probably, even if you ask that, it may still turn out different. But I've been very fortunate so far that I've been super picky about who I've acquired, and I've asked them ahead of time, here's what I want to do, here's how it's going to be done. You know, do you agree with that before they sign a contract? And if they agree, then we can work together. And obviously, if they don't agree, we can't go forward. But as an independent editor, the most frustrating part is when you have changes that aren't really, there are lots of changes where you can insert your own opinion and things like that. But there are some changes that are basics. They're really not a matter of opinion. And when somebody rejects those kinds of things and creates massive plot holes or something like that in the book, it's extremely frustrating. And it's really hard because you don't really want your name on it anymore because you did point out that flaw. So I would say that's one of the hardest parts of having zero control as an independent editor.
I want to ask the group a question real quick. As I imagine everybody in here is editors as well for their respective companies. I mean, Christy, I know you are. I believe Mandy said she was. I know Rebecca does. As an editor, at what point do you want to pull your hair out because you've seen the same mistake in 3 separate books by one author, and you've addressed it in the first one?
That happens so often that we're creating a series of workshops to cover all those basic errors that we find all the time. We've got the workshops in production right now. So.
Well, that's a step forward, at least. I have not done that yet, but I'm thinking about it.
Rebecca, do you wanted to answer the question?
We also have classes. Yeah, we have classes on that as well. But there are some things, let's face it, everyone knows this, you guys all know this, you're going to have an author who makes the exact same mistake every time, even though they know better. So yeah, that's probably the most frustrating part. And I'm sure we all know our owner too. I know I've got mine. I will end a quote with a period and then add "he said," you know, kind of thing.
Yes.
But you make sure your editors love you, you guys.
I have experienced that. Yes. Mandy, did you want to answer the original question as well? Did you?
I don't remember what the original question was at this point.
Sorry, I tend to talk a lot.
It was when does an author's input go from creative input to incessant meddling?
Okay, well, it can turn that corner real quick, but we do always invite collaboration from the authors, like we've all said. But once you've gotten an answer back from the professional that has done all the research and has the education and has the experience, and it's a reasonable response, and they can back it up with verifiable facts and resources, you should probably listen to that and stop arguing your point at that particular stage. That's kind of the point where we have to start deciding if we want to proceed forward or not with that particular project or not. And that unfortunately happens all too often. Like Ed was saying earlier, authors get confused between what a small press is and self-publishing. And while there is collaboration, they still do need to respect the fact that they trusted us enough with our portfolio to trust us with their book. So if they trusted us at the point to sign with us, then they should consider that when they're arguing their points later. We might actually know what we're talking about.
And again, as was the last time, Mandy leads us into the next question so beautifully, and that was from, I don't think I'll butcher this one, maybe A.F. Stewart. What's the one thing that you?
It's pronounced Anita.
Which she's got an AF here, so I'm gonna go with what's there. I know, Anita, but
Oh, we love Anita.
yes, we do. What's one thing that would absolutely make you reject a manuscript?
Okay. Anybody, all of the editors in here know what a copula spider is, I'm sure. So if I see 5 of them things within the submission, and I only ask for like a chapter to 3 chapters, I think right now I'm asking for the first 3 chapters. If I see 5 of those things within the first chapter, I'm probably going to have a problem with it. So I even explained what they are in our submissions page. So, I mean, just I can tell when it's not revised. I can tell when it's not edited. I can tell when it's a first draft. I mean, don't submit a first draft to me, please.
Oh, they will.
I know.
Oh, they will.
I get a lot of first drafts. I can see that, and I have to. I've said this on Josh Robertson's Writer Imperfect. I've said it on other podcasts that I've done. I hate writing rejection letters. I do. I hate to break somebody's aspirations of being a published author and giving them a rejection letter because I feel like I'm stepping on their dreams. But it happens, and I have to do it. And it's not a form letter. I even tell them exactly why it's being rejected and things they can work on and send it back to me once those revisions are made. So they just need to tell me it's a resubmit. But yeah, a copula spider or massive amounts of typos, I can get around some stuff, but those 2 things right there will definitely be one of the things I'm looking at. And if you can't follow submission guidelines, don't bother.
Yep, that's me. We set up our submission guideline, and if you can't be bothered to read that, if you can't be bothered to follow that, then I'm not going to try to work with you even. I'm going to reject it out of hand. And unlike Ed, I have no problem writing rejection letters. Now, because I will, unless you didn't bother to follow the submission guideline, I'm going to spell it out saying, this is precisely why we're rejecting you. So far, half the time it's been, if you will make these changes, we would love to hear back from you. You know, you can resubmit with us, but it's usually, you know, giant structural editing changes that have to be made, or they simply don't understand what a publisher is. I run into those as well.
You've been in my submissions group lately, Rebecca? Is that what you're doing now? Because it sounds like you and I have a lot of the same issues.
I don't know. Is your submission group crying?
I think some of them have gone online and cried about it.
Probably.
That's not right. How about for you, Mandy?
Wait, no, you and I did have the same submitter. That was right. You and I had that same crazy that that was so bad. Also, another quick way to get yourself kicked out and blackballed is send the same submission every week for 6 weeks straight.
I haven't had that happen yet.
Every week on clockwork.
Wow.
We had that happen at ours. We need to chat after the show and compare notes.
I'm sure we will.
How about for you, Mandy? What's something that you look at?
For me, it's very much what they're saying. We have very simple guidelines for our queries. And one of the things is put, I am askew in your query. So we know that you're not just blasting every publisher out there and you actually did read our guidelines. If you can't be bothered or respect our guidelines enough to just put that simple little quote in your query, then I'm probably not going to take the time to read the rest, because one, you either don't respect our time or our press, or you just didn't pay attention, and that's not going to be good for anybody moving forward.
Nice. Is there something that you live by, Christy, that you want to add?
Yeah, of course, the same thing. I think, you know, it's just so frustrating when people don't read guidelines. City Owl Press is based on romance or strong secondary romance. So it has to have one of those 2 things. And if it doesn't, then you should submit. You know, it's very, very clear on the site. And I've had people submit that are just like straight up thriller with no romance at all. You know, and of course I have to just come back and say, like, we don't accept that. But
send them to me.
Yeah, that is frustrating. Other than that, yes, definitely too many copy editing errors can signify that it's just going to take too much work on our end and nobody's got the time for it. But one of the things I'm also looking for right away is not every author is great at writing a hook. I understand that. But if I see a lack of depth right away, that's definitely going to cause me to reject. So you definitely want to, in your first, you should be able to, in your first couple of pages, get some good depth in there. If I see that lacking, it can be very difficult to work with someone to insert that after the fact, or to get them to understand what that means, proper character development, world building, things like that. So that can also cause a rejection pretty quickly.
I promise everybody out there, this is not a magic trick that the last person to speak leads us into the next question. It's just happening naturally like that, but it's happening well. So you guys keep it up because it's awesome. Because Christy just completely transitioned us and segued us into the very next question, which is from Isa McLaren, and it is with traditional pubs, books live or die based on the hook. How critical is that first line or paragraph in an indie pub?
Very.
100% critical.
Say that again, Mandy. I didn't hear what you said.
I said for RA, it's huge. And like Christy said, if there's no depth in that first paragraph or even the first page, then we're concerned that you're not going to have any depth further on in the story. And honestly, it's not that hard to hook a reader. Just make us care about the character. And I think authors get so far in their head, I have to create this great hook, that they lose sight of it's just about connecting with the emotions of the reader. So the hook is really important, and we really need to get better at those guys.
Look, you don't have to write it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. I mean, that's probably the best hook out there that most people reference. But I mean, if you can't write anything that classic, then at least within the first paragraph or two, give me a reason to read the next paragraph.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that, a really good hook can be inserted if the manuscript is great and the author just doesn't understand how to properly start a manuscript. But if I see the talent there, that can be okay, as long as it's like I see the talent quickly, obviously. But it is really important when we're publishing, obviously, it has to have a good hook. And so if you're starting out with hefty description or something that isn't based on emotion or action, people mistake action for a fight scene. That's not necessarily action. We have to be in the middle of something that's going to pull people in. That's one way to think of a really good hook. So, it's something we can work on, but, I have to see that the rest of the manuscript is good if we're going to work on it together.
Something that includes verbs.
Yeah.
Right, Christy? That's action. No, sir, but I agree with that 100%. I mean, if you have you could have one of the best indie authors on the planet that is very, very talented, and they don't know how to write a hook, but that's fine. I mean, we can, like Christy said, you can put that in later on after edits are done or whatever. We can come up with one. It's just as hard for some authors to write help you with a synopsis for the book as well. I know Kendra struggles with that. If we're asking her, hey, can you help us write a synopsis for the back of your book? She's like, what? I just wrote 300 pages. I don't know how to condense it to 2 paragraphs. Are you serious? I have a lot of authors that if we ask them to do that, they have a really hard time with it. And I'm like, okay, well, we can come up with something. And then they want to reject what we come up with. So, but you didn't submit anything. So come on, guys, help me out here. But yeah, I agree with that. And what I wanted to reiterate on before Christy started up was one thing that will also get you rejected quickly is putting the submission in the body of the email.
Yep.
I have had it happen.
Yes.
Every time.
And then not telling you, and then you print it, right?
Didn't know how to attach. How hard can that possibly be? But I mean, we've been dealing with attachments for what, 25 years? It's not that hard to do. So, I mean, if you put it in the body of the email, I'm going to reject it. And I more than likely will not email you and tell you why.
All right. How about for you, Rebecca? What is critically important? Is that what drew you to me?
The hook. She's drawing a blank. We jumped off.
Yeah,
We went
yeah.
on a tangent.
That is 100% why I picked up the submission. Yep, that's why. Actually, I have about half my authors are absolutely terrible at writing the hook. So, you know, a submission is raw when you get it. I mean, sure, someone's been over it a couple of times, but you know, once we get into start working on it, you know, we're supposed to be polishing it and sharpening it up. So if it doesn't come to us with a hook, that's fine. I can hammer it. I can sharpen it. I can make the barbs. I'm good at that on other people's stuff. So yeah, it's important to have in the finished product. I don't require it in a submission. I just require someone who's going to work with me. So if I respond to them and say, hey, we need to we need to work on this hook, we need to get this, you know, fine-tuned, something like that, you know, this is one of the things I do with most people who actually do submit to us. You know, I start a conversation back and forth, and if they're not willing to have a conversation, I let them go.
Nice. So Jennifer agrees with the blurb writing and the synopsis writing here.
I see that. Yeah. Thanks, Jen.
And just real quickly, Monica, I didn't skip your question. I'm going to skip your question right now, but I didn't skip it. There's a reason why. I'm going to ask it a little bit later because it attaches itself to another question. So I'm going to ask the next question ahead of you. So don't panic. I promise you, I will ask your question. So the next question is from Jennifer Renfried, and she asks, and this is probably one you guys get a lot. Can I even join an indie press if I've already self-published my books?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Half of my authors are self-published as well, or several of them had self-published their books and wanted to try it out with an indie press, and so they took it down. That is a requirement. You have to take it down, and that is probably universal. I don't know how other publishers work, but I require it, and especially while it's in development stages. And but yeah, you can certainly submit to your already published manuscript to an independent press. At least you can with us. I think Rebecca's the same way. I'm pretty sure Mandy is. Christy, I don't know what your company does. I'm sorry.
I actually haven't had that situation yet. I've had people who are self-published in general, but not necessarily the same book they've submitted to us. So I personally have not had to deal with that yet.
But Jennifer, depending on what your, because I saw her over there cheering, which, you know, get your pom-poms out. Yeah. Yeah, if you're happy about that answer, depending on what your genre is, I am open for submissions, not just Rebecca.
She writes superhero stuff.
I like those too.
It's pretty good. Yeah, she's got a really good one going right now. It's an anti-hero kind of thing. It's pretty.
Hey, we love anti-heroes at Burning Willow Press.
So there you go, Jennifer. Yeah. I'll take the fighter fee commission for that.
What's -10% of?
Yeah. What's
and it's still nothing?
10% of zero. It's zero, right?
I'll try and send you a bottle of whiskey or something. That one
out. So the next couple questions, they're kind of related, and it's so Monica. Again, I'm not even going to go with the last name Monica. I'm just going to say our good friend Monica. How do indie presses, I assume, deal with marketing?
Did you say deal with marketing?
Mm-hmm.
We do our marketing collaborative with the author too. Our job is to create a quality product and market it to the bookstores and the booksellers. The author's job is to connect with their ideal reader and build up their social following so we have something marketable to take to those bookstores. So we have a marketing plan. It's outlined. It's step by step. We give them every resource they need to do that effectively and without killing themselves on social media, because it is a time vampire if you don't do it in stages. And then we set up the events. We set up everything involving the signings, and we handle all of that. We just need the authors to work with us, to give us something that the bookstores really, really desire and want to put that book on their shelf.
Nice. This question apparently just baffled the entire panels.
That's a better answer than I had. So I'm going to back out of that question because honestly, I have it in my contracts that the author is going to do most of the marketing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the time. I'm running a company by myself pretty much with a handful of staff. I don't have the time to do all the marketing for them too.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Ed, in previous conversations we've had, and I don't know if we've had this online or not on air, but you and I have had a conversation about you then know it helps you sort out the authors you want to work with, because then you know who is really into, promoting themselves.
Yep,
and
absolutely
you out and not, and the ones that don't, you kind of shy away from. And
I have, yes, you and I have had that conversation at times too. The ones that are willing to do the work, I am more willing to help them with any aspect of marketing that they ask me to help them with. We do require them to do at least a little bit. But I have noticed that when I do get in there and I do find a few minutes to market for some of our authors, their numbers go up, which it should be going up anyway. Why is it only going up when I do it? That doesn't make much sense to me. So, I mean, it's just a numbers game. And like Mandy said, it's time sensitive. It's a time vampire, I think was the term she used. If you don't do it in a timely manner, you miss your opportunity. So I've got some authors right now that are just killing it in marketing themselves. And if I see it, oh, trust me, if I see it, I'm redoing it with you. You may not see it all the time. I know that Twitter is a waste of time. And I know there's some people who swear by Twitter, but as soon as you put something up on Twitter, 5 seconds later, you can't find it. So it's a waste of time. Facebook ads do work sometimes. Amazon ads do work sometimes. Instagram is trying to get into the ad space campaign. It does work sometimes. It just depends. I mean, you're like Mandy had also said, you need to connect with your readers, your fan base, your ideal market, your genre. If you can do that, you're going to be successful.
Yep.
How about for you, Rebecca? I know the answer to this question, but
you mean the answer of I scream and run away and tell ISO to take care of it? That answer?
Yeah.
We work with our authors. We make graphics. We set up a marketing schedule. We give them. We actually have a whole list of links. This is how you can best do it. And I actually spend probably, thankfully, I spend probably a third of my day or so talking with authors, saying, "Hey, I had this idea for marketing. Would this work? Could I do it like this? Could I do it like that?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's why we made a graphic for it! Yay!" So we've got really good authors.
You also
we've worked with that so far.
You've also done something really smart. You've cornered the swag market in a lot of ways.
Yes, I have.
I'm curious to follow up on this question, and this is a question.
I'm just greedy. You know that, Joe. I wanted a Go Indie Now shirt and mug. The only way for me to get that is, to steal all your swag and make it myself. I can do that.
Hey, I got one by sending them BWP swag.
You guys, it's so pretty. Their elegant logo is so nice.
I don't call it greedy. I call it hustling. You're a hustler. You work hard. So
yeah.
We'll call it that.
I do have a question, and I know I won't butcher this name, from Joe Compton. To follow up on this question, and that is because I know
You didn't have any questions?
what's that?
Didn't you start the show off by saying I didn't learn any of these questions?
Yeah.
I'm not prepared for anything.
He did say something to that, Nate. Yeah,
I did.
Uh-huh.
But I do. Something has come up because I'm curious about. I'm really curious about this aspect of it because I know that traditional publishing has started to do this a lot more, and knowing that you do depend on your authors to help you with the marketing aspect of it. Do you have, when you introduce yourselves and talk to them and get them started, do you have something that to the effect where you ask them about how many followers they have on their social medias? Is that something that you look at when you're acquiring a manuscript or a person, or does that matter not in the slightest for you?
it does now.
I'm not going to lie. I check every time. It's not a make or break, but I will go look and see if their social media is full of negativity and things that are not going to attract their ideal reader. Then I'm probably not going to make an offer unless the manuscript is just stellar, and then we're going to have a conversation about marketing. But it is definitely a factor, and we do look at it.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Literally what she said. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing about the same thing Mandy's doing. I've been checking out Facebook feeds, Instagram feeds, things like that when I get submissions because I'm asking for links to all that. I want to see. We just started this when submissions opened back up in May for Burning Willow Press. Anybody who submitted, I started taking a look at what their profiles and things looked like before we accepted them or denied them. And it's made for a better overall feel for me. Like I said earlier, off the air, we've gotten to where we don't have to be, let's build our portfolio. Now, I'm very selective in who I'm going to accept. So if you've submitted to me and you haven't heard back yet, I'm still reading it. Sorry, guys, we got swamped. But if you're planning on submitting to it, you might want to take all that negative racism stuff off of your wall.
Yeah, for sure. I'm curious, Christy, as somebody who hears pitches in person, as soon as that person leaves, are you Googling them? Are you looking them up as soon as they leave and figuring out about their profile, or you leave that up to?
What are you talking about? I just got a Google alert. She just looked me up.
Or do you leave that up to your press colleagues?
Well, for in-person things, I'm really looking to read their sample first. And if the sample is good, then I will look at, their social media. Social media is something that City Owl Press doesn't want to know about. It's not going to necessarily stop them from taking on a good author. But, just like with other, people here, it may require a conversation or some suggestions and things like that, an introduction to what City Owl Press is going to do and what the expectation is on the other side. So, especially with a debut author, we're looking to see if there's any following there. But like I said, if it's a really good book, it doesn't usually stand in the way.
Yes. Speaking of expectations, the awesome Dusty Grind, who, again, I don't have to worry about butchering that name. I know that name quite well. He asked, how do you handle expectations on brick and mortar and those dreaded wholesale returns? So how do you guys approach that with your authors? Is that something you mentioned up front? Is that in the contract? And how do you deal with is it after a certain time period if they get too many returns, or is that going to deter you from publishing them further?
No, it doesn't affect me at all. I mean, they can't handle, I don't think that it's the author's fault if their book gets returned. It falls short on that would be my fault for not putting out a quality product. My staff and I would have to investigate it and find out what happened, why it's being returned. Is it riddled with problems or something of that nature? That's not necessarily the author's fault if it's getting returned.
Yeah. I know for RA, the only returns we've ever had was from an author who did not show up for an event. So that has led us to outline the entire process of returns, everything it means. And if we book you for an event, we check with you first to make sure it's available. We confirm everything at least 3 times before we commit. But if we book you for an event and you cancel your event, then we're probably going to drop you, honestly.
I can see where that would be a problem. You've got a lot of inventory tied up in that event and a lot of time
Yeah.
and resources. So yeah, I can definitely see where that would be a problem.
Multiple cases for an event, that's a big deal.
Now, how do you handle it if it's an emergency situation? Like, oh, my son got hit by a car. I can't be there right now.
That's totally different. Totally different. And we do have a clause for that in the contract too. But, something like that. But just I woke up this morning and I don't want to go because I've got anxiety, because I'm going to have to go talk to people. Then you probably should have told us not to schedule events, because we ask up front, do you want events? And if you know that you're not the kind of personality that can handle these meet and greets, just tell us up front. That's fine. We're not going to force you to do an event. But if we book one and you've told us that this is a good time, then it could turn into an issue later.
Right. So most of the authors that I deal with are introverted. I've got a few that are like me that are extroverted. They'll get out there, they'll jump on tables and dance around if they have to sell a book. I'm much better in person than I am online, or I'm better in crowds than I am just talking over the phone even. So you get authors that are like, for instance, Kendra, my wife. I'm bringing her back into it again. She's not even in here on this, but she's introverted, and she admits she's introverted. She doesn't like being in front of people. She doesn't like doing author events in front of large crowds and stuff. That's why she takes me with her. So I kind of am the buffer zone for her, because I can get the crowd interacting, where she's more like, well, I just want to kind of sit back here and just let me read my book or whatever, But she has done a few more in the last couple of years, and she's coming out of her shell a little bit. I think that one thing that you should explain to authors that are introverted, just take somebody who's not introverted with you, have them be your buffer zone, so that way you don't have to necessarily interact unless you're directly spoke to. I think it helps.
And that works. That definitely works.
How about for you, Rebecca?
Yeah, we call it a handler. For situations like that, we suggest everyone takes a handler. I mean, even if you are an extrovert, even if you can work the crowd, take a handler. Every live event you do, every time you're out and about, you should always have a handler, because you're always going to need, at the Sonkin, you're going to need a buffer zone. So.
Well, you're also going to need something to drink, something to eat, somebody to watch your table if you're at a convention. So, I mean, hey, you can't I could, but, female authors couldn't just go and pee in a little bucket or something behind them. You have to get up.
Oh, bet me.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, so yeah, get a handler or a buffer or somebody to kind of keep an eye on things and help you along if you're going to do stuff like that. It helps a lot.
So,
and
Jennifer,
if you commit to one, go. If you commit to one, just go. Just make it happen.
Yep.
So Jennifer has the last question, and then we'll bow out here unless anybody else wants something else real quick. You guys got to get it in there if you do. Otherwise, we're going to close this down. But and this is something, Jennifer, just so you know, I had this was a long conversation that I had with Rebecca, an email conversation about this very topic, which is, what about conventions? I love getting booth at cons, but I can't afford them too often. That's where I make my most sales. How are cons handled for you all?
Crickets.
We leave it up to the authors to do any cons that they want. I'm not really sure what she's asking with that question. I mean,
I know what she's asking.
In 2 weeks, Isa and I are going to be doing a.
I think she wants to know how much you cover.
Have a booth set up. Oh, how much we cover?
Yeah.
That's up to the author.
Conventions can get quite expensive.
We'll get you the books ordered.
Conventions can get quite expensive. I've seen conventions where tables were $670, and if you're not selling that great, with your author or with your publisher,
Mhm.
you can't expect your publisher to foot the bill for that, plus the hotel accommodations, plus the gas mileage, plus the inventory, plus, you know, whatever else you're asking for. It's going to be something that, I mean, if you're really good face to face, do some book signings. Let's see how it works. Do some local
Mhm.
bookstores. I know a good friend of mine, Bobby Nash, does every little book signing he can get into, and he does fairly well. If you can get your name out there, you can do like Josh Robertson did. He went, what did he do? Like 30, 50, 150
40
conventions.
conventions.
42.
Yeah, he did like 40 some conventions in 1 year. And
Mhm.
I mean,
One summer. Forget about
Do
year. It was
Yeah.
one 7-month period.
Yeah,
Right.
it was
So
the season. Yeah.
it really just depends on certain aspects. I mean, if I'm doing a local convention, I've got local authors that I can bring to that convention with me, and I'll pay the whole way. So, I mean, I'll take care of them while they're there.
Mhm.
But I don't have it in my budget. I don't know if Mandy does. I don't know if Christie's company does. I don't have it in my budget to afford to pay for tables and hotel accommodations and things of that nature for my authors. I wish I did. Hopefully next year I will, but it's just not in my budget right now.
Especially since the books they sell there, they get cash for and put that cash in their pocket.
Mhm.
Exactly. I'm already giving you a huge discount on the
So-
inventory.
Yeah, we give them a discount on the inventory. We help them get swag. We help them get the table runners, the cloths. We'll help them make, author logos, series logos. We'll help mark, all of the stuff that you might want for a signing. But it's up to the author to. We'll even help them make reservations if they want.
Mhm.
We'll work to get them on panels if they're good enough. But for the cost for the actual inventory and tables and all of the expenses of cons, that is 100% on the author.
Yeah, I can't say I know how it would work if somebody wanted to do a con on their own, but I can say that just recently, as I mentioned before, City Owl is romance or strong secondary romance. And so the biggest event for us is Romance Writers of America, which has a conference every year. So that just happened, and City Owl did have an area for City Owl author signings. So you could be a part of that, and City Owl even gave the authors like a nice pack, like a care pack for the day. And, the owners were there and everything. So, that was them, that was their decision. And they made sure that the authors were all represented and that the ones who could make it were able to come. And I think that's really cool, but I don't know how it would work if they wanted to do something independently at a con.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one of the scenarios that I brought up in my negotiations was there was a conference that a book festival that required you to buy it through their store essentially, and so that gets a little tricky because you don't hold the books, and then so they buy all the books and then they sell it through a store or something like that, and so most I would assume with all of you guys would work, you guys would help the author in whatever capacity you could help them if your name helps get them into a con, or if something like that were to happen, that would be something that you all are very willing to obviously do and perform. Am I?
Absolutely. Yeah. I like I said, if there's local conventions, like I've got an author named Carrie Allen Denny, who fantastic fantasy author. He's great on his feet. He's great in front of crowds. He knows a lot about publishing and creating a story. And I brought him in to local cons and took care of him while he was here. I even told him, hey, if you want, you can spend the night and I'll take care of it. Oh, I've already made arrangements. Oh, great. Wonderful. I even had all of his books shipped directly to me because he was coming to there. No sense of shipping them to him, just ship them right to me, and gave him his books and everything. You just take them home with you when you're done. So you can sell them at the next convention or next little book signing you do or something, because he does a lot of local stuff. So I try and take care of them if they're coming to some place that I'm going to be. But-
Note to self: stay at Chateau Souder if you're ever in the Carolinas. All
Hey,
right.
I have a very comfortable couch,
Excuse
and there's
me,
all
what?
kinds of beer.
You're gonna stay with him and not me?
Well, no, because you're my publisher, so I'd have to stay with you. But but I would love to stay with you anyway.
You'd have more fun with me, Joe. I have beer.
I look. I don't know how I would work that out. I'm not even going to touch that. I'm just.
Well,
Gonna,
she's only about 2 hours from me. We'll just split the difference, Rebecca. We'll put them up in Gastonia.
not a gumpy. You can't stretch me and
I thought you meant literally. I was like, I'm taking the top half then.
Oh, okay.
All right. On that note, so just to close everything out, just so people understand who you are and what you guys, if you do have a specialty, obviously, like Christy said, she has their press has a specialty. So please mention that to the audience so that they know that if they're writing crime thrillers, that you don't want to submit right now. If you're looking for something specific, when we have you guys reintroduce yourselves, let everybody know if you are open for submissions. If you're not, please let everybody know as well. But for that, I'm going to just go the reverse and have Chrissy start. So Christy.
Okay, well, of course, you already know I'm with City Owl Press, and we take romance. What we are currently looking for is specifically contemporary romance, paranormal romance, sci-fi romance, historical romance, romantic suspense, time travel romance, and urban fantasy. That's very specifically what we're looking for. But, if you have something romance or secondary romance, you can send it to us. You can go to cityowlpress.com, check out our submission guidelines. I am currently closed to queries, but a lot of people are still open at City Owl Press. And if you send it to the general address, which I believe is queries@cityowlpress.com, everyone will see it. So, even if there's just one person who would be into that particular subgenre, they will be sure to see it. So thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for being here. And does the romance extend to erotica? Are you guys stands for erotica?
Yeah, it would have to be really a heavy romance, but it can include, it can definitely include sex in it. Sure.
Mm-hmm. All right, Rebecca.
Asking for a friend.
Yeah. All right, Rebecca.
Again, that's 3furiespress.com. You can go to our submission page to see what we accept. We accept most things. It always depends on ours. We don't. It's more what we don't accept. We don't accept nonfiction at the moment, and we don't accept children's books. That's actual children's books that are heavy and graphic. We actually do accept erotica. I mean, no one is surprised by that. I write erotica, and it's now getting republished through their publishing house. So,
is there anything specific you're looking for right now that you don't have?
Actually, we just covered all the basic genres, except maybe we don't have a military book. That's about it. We've got romance, thrillers, sci-fi, fantasy, high fantasy, urban fantasy, romance,
crime thriller,
erotica, crime thrillers, espionage. We actually have a military sci-fi even. So yeah. We've also got a dystopian coming out. We got 2 dystopians coming out. So we cover everything.
Nice. All right. How about for you, Mr. Sauter?
Let's see. Burning Willow Press accepts and is open for submissions for a little while longer this year. Fantasy, horror, sci-fi, the big 3. We are not looking for romance unless they have a strong element in one of those 3 genres. We are looking for mysteries, thrillers. We are looking for children's fantasy. We've got a couple of those coming out real soon. I will even do religious fantasy, but like I said, it has to have one of those 3 elements in it. It needs to have horror, sci-fi, fantasy, or any subgenre in it. that has to do with that: witches, werewolves, the vampires, all the main stuff, monsters. Like I said, the only thing we're really not looking for right now is romance. We'll send those over to Christy's group.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We do publish erotica as well, provided there's another element in there. And our submission guidelines are on our website at Burning Willow Press, right here behind me. BurningWillowPressLLC.com. That's the way it was wrote up. That's the way it is. And you please follow the submission guidelines. And if you caught me on this, put my name on the email, so that way I know where we got picked up at. I'll be happy to read it myself. I don't typically read the submissions. I have a staff for that. I have staff members for that. I have a group for that, but I will read that one myself.
Nice. All right. How about for you, Mandy?
I'm Mandy again. Hi. And editor-in-chief of Red Askew Publishing. I am looking for mysteries and thrillers. We do not publish erotica, so I'll have to defer those to my colleagues over there. You can find the guidelines on our website at redaskew.publishing.com, and there are very clear, simple query instructions. Please read them. Please follow them, and hopefully I'll read your work soon.
And I will make sure that all the submission website pages are listed here in the description for everybody to go check out if you want to. Jennifer asks, Western. Do you have a Western there, Rebecca? Are you looking for Western? Anybody?
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. So with that being said, I want to thank everybody here. Thank you to our audience who dictated this for the most part. Yes, I cheated and asked one question. Sue me. But for the most part, I just want to thank everybody for being here and joining us for our first town hall. We'll be trying to do these monthly, and we'll have a different subject and a different idea next time. But in fact, I could probably say that the next one will be about art and cover art and illustrators. I've actually had a couple illustrators come to me and say, "Can you do a show about us?" So that probably will be the next town hall. So if you guys are interested in what goes into the mind of a cover artist and an artist in general who does graphics, then you might want to tune in for that next one, because that should be a really good one. And we'll probably do that in September. But I really just I can't thank my awesome group enough for being here and doing this. And thank you all. And remember that it's always time to go indie now. And with that, we'll see you again. This town hall is closed.